Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 215. We're talking week 2 NFL picks. Joined again by Jacob Kamaker from NBC Sports Boston. How's it going, Jacob?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad to be back again for another week of football.
Yeah. Same here. How'd your week 1 go?
It wasn't too great. Some of my better picks were kind of big flops. The Falcons fell flat on their face, which I was really banking on them. I had some positive ones. Packers on opening night was good. The Cardinals' furious comeback allowed me to cover on that spread. But overall, I think I went like 5-10-1. I think I actually went the same exact as you, which makes sense because we had all but 2 of the same picks.
Yeah, it was a weird week 1 where we had some late results that changed the results, the spread results of the game. Overall not too good, but 2-1-1 against the spread with my top plays. I was kind of like, I didn't really love the week 1 slate. I had trouble finding 5 games I wanted for the super contest. So I ended up picking, the Eagles, I guess was my 5th team. And they looked like they're going to cover. And if they did, I would have went 3-2 in the super contest. But of course, with 6 seconds left, Case Keenum had to throw that backdoor touchdown. It's horrible.
And the worst part of that was you watch the first half and you're like, oh my God, the Eagles are going to lose this game. Then they come out, cover the spread, everything's fine. And somehow there's garbage time left for the Redskins. And they were like, if it was just the second half, it was like 25-7 in that half, would have covered easily. But a maddening game overall.
Yeah, they had 30 net yards of offense in that half before that drive. So it's like, I don't get what happened. Although Case Keenum did miss a receiver for a deep touchdown earlier in that second half. So it was a very weird game, kind of emblematic of how the rest of the week went. It was just a very strange week, I thought. But I love some of the week 2 picks much better. I think the slate's much better than week 1. And it's weird because usually I do well week 1. I think this is the first losing week 1 I've had in a long time. But this week just seems better. So hopefully it pans out that way. So let's begin with the Thursday night game. The Buccaneers are at the Panthers. Line open up Panthers -6.5. It's up to 7 -105. Some places still 6.5, and other places. Ton of action on the Panthers, more than 80%. So who do you like in this game?
I'm following with the Panthers in this game. I know there's a lot of action, like you said, on the Panthers, and it's kind of easy to see why. They just played a pretty solid game against the Rams. They weren't great by any means, and they didn't ultimately come out as the winner. But if you look at how the Bucs did comparatively against the 49ers, where Jameis Winston threw so many interceptions, Mike Evans couldn't get going, even though he was dealing with an illness, but still he was practically invisible. And they lost by 14 points to the 49ers. And I still think, as I said last week, they're like, the 49ers are the most okay team in the league. They're like, fine, but if you're the Buccaneers, you shouldn't be losing by 14 to them. I think because this is a home game for the Panthers and they're coming off a pretty close loss against a fairly good team, I think they'll be motivated to win. I think they ultimately pull off the win. I like them at -6.5. I take them at -7 too. I may not bet a ton on this game because Thursday nights can be unpredictable, but I have more faith in Cam Newton, and better quarterback usually wins on the short week.
That Carolina Rams game was so frustrating because I had the Panthers +3 for the super for my pick of the month, but they were +2.5 in the super contest. So it kind of needed them to cover that. And they just couldn't get there because they just killed themselves with mistakes the entire game. It was just the first drive, DJ Moore fumbles, and then they throw a weird backward pass to Moore who can't land on it, and that's a fumble. It sets up a Rams touchdown. Then they have a delay of game to set up a longer field goal from 53. They missed that. Then Newton throws an interception. And then meanwhile, the Rams are fumbling. The Rams are trying to lose this game, and yet the Panthers can't capitalize on it. It was just really frustrating. If you look at the overall stats from that game, the Panthers outgained them. They had more yards per play at least. It just seemed like the Panthers were the better team. My concern, though, with the Panthers is that Cam Newton didn't run the ball at all. He didn't have a single rush until there was 11 minutes left in the third quarter. So, obviously he had that ankle injury in the preseason. So I thought, based on positive reports, I thought he was going to be okay, but he clearly wasn't 100%. And Cam Newton who can't scramble is not the same Cam Newton at all. So I think that's a big concern for me in this game. Is if he can't run, the Panthers' offense will be a little bit limited. Tampa Bay's defense wasn't that bad this past week. They did some good things. Vernon Hargreaves played very well. I don't know if he can keep doing that, but we'll see. So I'm actually on the opposite side here. If I knew Cam Newton could run around and scramble, I'd be with you on the Panthers. But I'm worried that he won't be able to run around. I think this might be a lower scoring game. I think it'll at least be closer. So I'm on the Buccaneers, but I'm not going to bet this game. Like you said, Thursday night games just so unpredictable.
Yeah, it's only if it's like a massive advantage for one team will I bet on Thursday night. I can totally get the case. I mean, if Cam's not fully healthy, he's not scrambling, like -7's a big thing to overcome. I tend to root for the Panthers a little bit, though, because I lived in Charlotte for a while and was like half mile from the stadium. So I think that even if Newton can't scramble a bit, Christian McCaffrey is just so good. But it really could go either way because you never know. Bruce Arians is a great coach, so maybe he'll get the Bucs to cover.
Yeah, I feel like anything could happen in this game. Like Jameis Winston can throw for 400 yards, or he can throw 5 interceptions. Like it seems like anything can happen.
If you remember last year's Week 2 game, everyone was super gung ho. It was Ravens Bengals, I think, and everyone was like, "Oh, the Bengals are going to get crushed. The Ravens are going to win by like 10," and the Bengals won, I think, 34-23 or something. So it's too early to be betting the Thursday night games, I feel.
Yeah, a lot can happen, and I feel like people are going to be surprised by what happens in Week 2 because there's always overreactions from Week 1. So moving on, speaking of overreactions, I feel like the Colts at the Titans. The Titans open up -3. It's still -3, but the public is betting on the Titans at a 2/3 clip. Apparently, they're impressed that they beat the Browns in the season opener, and apparently the Browns were going to win the Super Bowl according to everyone, and now the Titans will apparently because they beat the Browns. So who do you like in this game?
I mean, I like the Colts +3. I mean, the Colts just took the Chargers to overtime, and they covered the 6.5-point spread there. I mean, they looked pretty good with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. He wasn't great by any means, but he looked solid enough. Their defense wasn't great the whole game, but they stepped up when they needed to. And the whole thing about the Titans is everyone's all over them because they beat the Browns, like you said. But the big question is, how good actually are the Browns? Like, coming into the season, I thought they were one of the most overrated teams in the league. I thought they had a dream team Eagles type vibe where they've added a ton of talent, but it was going to take a while for them to, sync up. And that's what it looked like to me in the first game against the Titans. I think the Titans they looked a lot better than I expected them to. I mean, obviously they won 43-16 or something. But I still think that the Colts being 3-point underdogs is a very bad estimate on this game because Mariota struggled against the Colts last year, and the Colts are just an overall solid team. They should keep it close at the very least, and I'm pretty comfortable betting the Colts in this one for a couple of units.
Okay, you're higher than I am on the Colts. I'm with you on the Colts. I'm not going to bet this game though because I worry about the Colts having to play like a really tough overtime game, and then they have to fly back from the West Coast. They could be tired here, so that's my main concern with the Colts. But I think they're the right side. Tennessee itself has some upcoming concerns because they play on Thursday night and they could be a bit distracted there. But yeah, I agree with what you said. The Titans, I think, are a little overrated now based on what happened in Week 1. And we talked about it. We both liked the Titans last week because we thought the Browns were overrated. And, I didn't expect a 30-point victory, but I did think the Titans had a chance to win that game going in. And that's exactly what happened. The Browns couldn't pass protect at all, and Tennessee looked great. But the Colts are a very good team. I think if you exclude quarterback, I think they might have the best roster in the NFL. Maybe the Patriots. I should probably put the Patriots there, but then the Colts. And they're a good team, so I think they can cover the spread. I wish we were getting like 4. That might make me bet on this game, but +3. I still think the Colts are the right side.
Yeah, no, that's the +3 number. Just because of the good chance of a push, even if it's close, is why I'm planning to bet the game. But if the line moves in favor of the Colts at like +2 or +2.5, probably will stay away from that one a little bit more. But we'll see if the public corrects themselves on this one.
Yeah, well, the line seems to be trending upward. It's -3, -116 at Pinnacle, which is the sharpest book on the web. -3, -115 at Chris, which is also a sharp book. So I could see this line getting to 3.5. So if I'm betting this, I'll definitely be patient with it. Next game, Chargers at Lions. The Chargers open up -3. It's down to 2.5. There's probably still some threes out there that you can get with plus juice. I actually locked this in +3 -120. So to get spoiler alert, I'm on the Lions. The public is way heavy on the Chargers, more than 80%. So who do you like in this game?
I'm pretty torn on this one because I know the Lions looked really good last week, at least until the fourth quarter when Kyler Murray made that furious comeback and tied the game, and it ended in a tie. But I don't know how much I would trust the Lions even at home in a home opener. If you look at Matt Stafford's record in home openers, it's fairly solid. He's 5-3. Where they're the home dogs, I kind of like them a little bit. But I think the Chargers have the better overall team. I know their offensive line is bad. Trent Scott in place of Russell Okung has been not great and wasn't great against the Colts, and that's probably being kind. But I just think that Matthew Stafford will have more trouble against the Chargers defense that has better play at cornerback than the Cardinals had with Patrick Peterson out and Robert Alford hurt. So I'm leaning towards the Chargers actually on this one. I don't know if I'll actually bet this because I'm not very confident in it. And who knows, maybe the Lions have turned the corner. But with these two teams, it's just a very big toss-up. And even though I like the Chargers a little bit better, they're also coming off that overtime game, like you said, and they're traveling to play in Detroit. So I'm very slightly leaning on the Chargers, but this is probably one I'll stay away from.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird spot for both teams because both teams are playing. They're coming off an overtime game on the West Coast, and they're both traveling east. So it's like an early start for both teams. So I thought that was weird, but I think this line is just off. I made this line personally, Chargers -1. And so I think there's a little bit of value there. Obviously not a huge difference between +3 and +1 in terms of just numbers. It's only 2 points off, but if you can get +3, I think that's a huge deal because 3 is the most likely outcome of any football game. I mean, you mentioned the offensive line. That's my biggest motivation here for betting the Lions. The Chargers offensive line is the worst in the NFL. And when I say the worst in the NFL, I'm not including the Dolphins because like the Dolphins are worse at everything. So when I say the worst at something, I don't mean the Dolphins, but the Chargers, they can't block at all. Trent Scott, he's a disaster. I have no idea how the tackles are going to pass protect against the Lions pass rush, would seem pretty good. I like them a lot, like Trey Flowers and Devon Kennard. Like they both are very good against Arizona until they got tired. So I think that favors Detroit. I don't think the Chargers will be able to cover TJ Hawkinson, who looked great. They don't have Derwin James anymore. I think their linebackers are a little slow. Historically they haven't been good in coverage. So I like the Lions here. I think this line is off. I think this should be around pick 'em or by 1. So at +3, I like the Lions considerably. At +2.5, not so much. You need the 3 here. But yeah, I definitely favor the Lions. All right. Next game, Bills at the Giants. It's another home dog. The Bills open up -2.5. It's actually moved down to -1.5. Public's even on this. Who do you like here?
I'm taking the Bills. Even again, this is another home dog game, like you said, and I do tend to favor home dogs in certain circumstances, but this week I'm just not liking them much at all. I mean, the Giants don't have a very good defense. They traded away and let some of their best pieces walk, and Landon Collins, Olivier Vernon, and they replaced it with like Jabril Peppers, and they don't really have much of a pass rush. Josh Allen wasn't great in the first game for the Bills, but he did lead a comeback. The Bills defense really deserves a lot of credit for what they did. They held Le'Veon Bell to like 3.5 yards a carry. Can they do it to Saquon? I don't know, but it's possible at the very least. And just a fun stat about Eli Manning and the Giants. And since 2011, they have only won 1 home opener, which is mind-boggling to me because in that span, they've had some solid teams. In fact, I think one of those teams beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, even though I don't want to remember that. But I have a really tough time trusting Eli Manning in this circumstance. He wasn't terrible last week, but I'm going to go with the team with a better defense and the team that I think will be able to slow down Eli. I'm going to go with the Bills at -1.5 or -2.5. Anything in there, I'll take them.
Yeah, the Giants defense is a train wreck. They couldn't defend anyone against Dallas last week. It was just horrible. They had no pass rush, as you said. Their secondary play is abysmal. I don't know if DeAndre Baker knows how to play football. Like he's just so bad. I don't know like what they were thinking. Teams had a second round grade on Baker heading into the 2019 draft, and they traded up into the first round for him. It just didn't make much sense. If Daniel Jones didn't look good in the preseason, that this draft class just looked like horrific for them. But at least there's hope for the future. Unfortunately, they're going to play Eli Manning. I didn't know about that stat. That's a pretty cool stat. I would right now. I am favoring the Giants by a little bit. I'm not going to bet this game. But a key injury here that I'm going to look out for is Sterling Shepard's concussion. If Shepard can't play, the Giants are going to have absolutely zero talent at receiver. They're going to have to go with like Benny Fowler and Darius Slayton, like all these guys. These bums are not going to get open against the Bills. If they have Shepard, at least that's at least someone. But without Shepard, I'm going to be on the Bills with you. So that's something I'm going to look toward the end of the week. So otherwise, like I don't really have a good feel for this game. I'm not going to bet this one.
Yeah, that Shepard injury is going to be the key because if he's out, that just locks it in even further for me.
Yeah. Well, one thing in the Giants' favor is that I thought their offensive line actually played well in the opener. Their offensive line has been horrific for years. And it's finally good. So I think that could be a reason why they get Daniel Jones in there. I wanted you to get your take on this before you move on to the next game. Saquon Barkley had 5 carries in the first half compared to 19 passes by Eli Manning. And I've seen some people say, oh, it was a blowout. It was not a blowout in the first half. It was 14-7 in the middle of the second quarter. So the Giants had plenty of opportunities to get Saquon Barkley carries. Is there any legitimate reason why Barkley only had 5 carries? Can you think of one?
I really can't. I mean, if they're trying to win the game, they're going to have to do it with their run offense. Like you said, the offensive line is much better, especially that Kevin Zeitler trade really does not get enough love because everyone was so focused on them giving up Odell Beckham that people didn't really, pay any attention to when they got Kevin Zeitler in those 2 separate trades with the Browns. But I really can't fathom why they gave Barkley so few touches in that first half. He ran the ball extremely well. I think both you and me thought the Giants would keep that game close last week because of their ability to run the ball. So I don't know if maybe they wanted to ease Barkley in and they didn't think they were going to win the game. But if that type of usage continues further, I mean, it's going to be very hard to trust the Giants to compete in any game. And, from fantasy perspective, if Barkley's not getting a lot of touches for the Giants, that's going to be a huge red flag for Barkley owners.
Yeah, I don't understand. What if they're trying to get Eli injured on purpose so that they get like throw as many times as you want, Eli, get hurt so we can use Daniel Jones and not hurt your feelings?
That's a fantastic conspiracy theory and one that I could absolutely buy into solely because the last time they tried to bench Eli Manning, it got the head coach fired. So it's this willingness of the Giants to stick with Manning. It can't continue. Like Jones is a superior player. He was my favorite quarterback coming out, albeit in the weak quarterback class, but he reminded me a bit of Carson Wentz. So you got to get him on the field at this point. Starting Eli is not going to do anything.
Yeah, I don't. They have to start Daniel Jones soon. There's no excuse for this at all. It's not like if he looked horrible in the preseason, you could be like, okay, he needs time, but he looked great. Like there's no reason not to play him.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Cardinals at Ravens. This line opened up Ravens -12.5. It's up to 13, actually 13.5 in some books. Equal action from the public. So who do you like here?
I actually have already locked in on the Cardinals here. I think this line is a massive overreaction to how well the Ravens played against the Dolphins. As you said earlier, the Dolphins are the worst at everything in the league. Like they're borderline not an NFL team at this point. Like I know we always make jokes. Like there was jokes about the 0-16 Browns. What would happen if they played Alabama? like, I think they would have won. I am not convinced this team of Dolphins would beat one of the better college football teams right now. Like, maybe it's possible, but that's how bad they were. So, like, and I know that the Cardinals, they didn't look good for 3/4 of the game, but things really started to click for Murray at the end of the fourth and in overtime. And I think he's going to have a chance to play a little bit better and more consistently in his start. I am concerned. Before or after I locked this in, it was revealed that his right tackle, Marcus Gilbert, went on season-ending IR with a torn ACL. So I'm a little concerned about that. But the nearly 2-touchdown spread just seems ridiculous to me because as good as Baltimore looked against the Dolphins, I don't think they're going to have that same success. Arizona's defense is far better than the Dolphins. And while they might have some issues in coverage with Patrick Peterson still out, I think that they can keep this closer just because Kyler Murray can do that.
If you're on the Ravens roster right now and you just had that huge win over the Dolphins, how good do you think your team is? Like, you have to be reading all these press clippings like, wow, we beat this team by 50 points. We're the best team. We're going to win the Super Bowl. I feel like they might be a little overconfident in this game, especially considering that they have the Chiefs, Browns, and Steelers coming up after this one. So why would they be like focused against the Cardinals who just tied? You know, like I feel like they might think they're above the Cardinals. They're the highest favorite of the week, except for the qualifier, the Dolphins. Like they don't count. They're the highest favorite of the week otherwise. And I just feel like they're going to overlook Arizona potentially. This line in the look ahead, the Westgate casinos posts spreads before the week, so you can get you got to look at like what the spread's going to be. This line was Baltimore -10, so this moved 3.5 points just based on that win. And, you know, like you said, the Dolphins aren't a real football team. You can't gauge anything from a win over the Dolphins at this point. And to your note about college football team playing the Dolphins, I would love to see that. Like normally when people are like, oh, Alabama could beat this team, it's like, no, it's like nonsense. Like this NFL players are going to beat college players. But the Dolphins don't really have NFL players. That's the crazy thing about this. It's like if you go position by position, except for cornerback, you know, with Xavier Howard, defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. You look at like quarterback. Would you rather have Tua Tagovailoa or Ryan Fitzpatrick? I think I'd rather have Tua, right?
I would take Tua.
Yeah. Look at running back. Alabama has Najee Harris and like all those running backs. Would you rather have that or Kalen Ballage and Kenny Drake? I guess, but like.
Kenyon Drake's good when he's healthy, but we don't know how healthy he is because they barely played him against the Ravens.
Yeah, and then the Ravens. Or I keep saying the Ravens. The Alabama has all the receivers, and then the Dolphins have no receivers. So it's like if you go position by position, it's like all of a sudden you think like, all right, maybe Alabama is better than the Dolphins, but.
I would love to at least see what like Westgate would make a spread for that game as. Like that would be a good hypothetical thing for them to do. Like if these two teams played, this is what the spread would be. Because I'm just curious now at this point. But
I
know. Maybe if we petition enough, they'll do it because teams are always looking to make money. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the Dolphins would definitely not agree to do it, but I would love to see it. Anyway, I'm with you on this. I like the Cardinals for a couple units. How many units do you have on Arizona?
I think I have 2 on them right now.
Yeah, I have 2 as well. This line's high at 13.5. If it gets to 14, I might add a third unit. It's a slight concern about Arizona having an overtime game and then playing on the East Coast early, but there's just so much line value here. You just can't ignore it. So
yeah, like the point that I like the best is you said like the Ravens might look ahead and think they're better than this because they're also a fairly young team, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Because Lamar Jackson, I think, is younger than me, which is sad for me. But there aren't a lot of players in the league like that. But who knows? Maybe if he gets out of rhythm first, he'll lose it a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I remember the day when I learned a player was younger than me in the league, and that's kind of like it was kind of sad. And now there are coaches younger than me in the league, so it's like it's pretty upsetting. And I see like I've been doing this for 20 years. My site's been up for 20 years as of November, and I'm writing about players who are my age. I'm like, these guys are old. They should retire. And like, wait, I'm this old. This is sad.
Yeah, I guess it's part of the cycle, right?
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, next game, Patriots at Dolphins. I don't know what to say about this. The Patriots they open minus 18.5. It's up to 19. Could hit 20 maybe. What do you think here?
I just can't take the Dolphins. Like I don't think I'll bet more than one unit on this game just because the line is so absurd. But I mean, the Patriots are so good. They just beat the Steelers by 30 plus points. What are they going to do to the Dolphins? Like, they probably want revenge for that game in Miami last year where they lost on that ridiculous Kenyon Drake play, the Hail Mary type thing. That was crushing for New England fans. So they get Antonio Brown this week. This is basically a preseason tune-up for them. They're just going to go out and light up the Dolphins, get Brown acclimated to the offense, and just go to town. All three of their running backs are going to get tons of carries. Like, I have to go with the Patriots. I can't bring myself to bet the Dolphins, but I'm not going to go more than a unit on a line that might be close to 20.
It's the highest spread I've seen for a road favorite this early in the season. It's absurd. I don't know how you can bet the Dolphins because they're not trying. Like, there was a play last week that stood out to me. It was one of the touchdowns. They were just standing around and watching. Like, they weren't even trying. And then after, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was the Boykin touchdown. Like, I actually was watching that play. I thought the play was over. I thought it had been blown dead. I was so confused.
I don't get it. And the players afterward, some of the veterans requested trades. Like, I feel like I think it was like everyone except for Xavier Howard requested a trade afterward. All the veterans. You just can't back a team like this that's losing intentionally. So it's Patriots or nothing. You can't bet the Dolphins. I say that. Obviously, there is a number where you would bet the Dolphins, right? Because if there's, like, say you have to go to extremes here. So let's say the books made the Patriots 180-point favorites. Like, you would bet the house on the Dolphins, right? Because the Patriots aren't going to win by more than 180. So, like, what is the number where you would, like, legitimately bet on the Dolphins?
Oh man, see, that's such a tough question. If the Patriots hadn't won as big over the Steelers as they did, I feel like this might be a slightly easier question. But man, so if they get up big at halftime and they put in Jarrett Stidham, that would be the thing that you'd be like, all right, I'm a little bit nervous about how Stidham would do, even the Dolphins are that bad. But even still, I'm probably like, we're probably getting to at least 30 points before I consider the Dolphins. Like, that sounds ridiculous, but the only situation I could see is if the Patriots score like 42 points in the first half, pull Brady, Stidham plays the rest of the game, and Miami gets like 2 garbage time touchdowns. So 30 would probably be the line, which is insane.
Yeah, it would have to be in the 30s, right? Because even 28, 4 touchdowns, like, I feel like the Patriots could have that by the middle of the second quarter.
Oh yeah, they could, every one of their drives in the first half. If they got 7 drives, they get 7 touchdowns. It wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, this could be 49-0 at halftime. So I would not bet the Dolphins here. I've seen some people on my Facebook wall say, you have to consider the Dolphins because this line's so high. And, it's gonna be hot in Miami. Belichick's friends with Brian Flores. Like, they're coming up with all these excuses, and I'm just like, but the Dolphins are not trying. Like, they don't want to win. So.
And Belichick's friends with Brian Flores. He's also friends with, when Josh McDaniels was the head coach, he's friends with him. Matt Patricia's the head coach. I mean, that didn't work out because Belichick lost to him, but, he's not going to stop trying to beat someone up. He runs up the score all the time. I mean, his thing. They'll just keep playing.
Yeah, Belichick doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would ease up on an opponent, no matter who it is. Yeah. It could be his son coaching. He'd run up the score.
Yeah, he'd put it like 100-0, even if it was his son. I guarantee it. He's got a vendetta against the NFL at times, so he likes to prove how good he is, and that the league would be much worse without him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to a real game. Cowboys at the Redskins. This line opened up Cowboys minus 4.5. It's creeped up to 5 in some places, but the public is way all over the Cowboys. Almost 90% of the action is on Dallas. Are you with the public here?
This is a really tough one, and the Redskins are a huge road dog here. I kind of wanted to take the Redskins, but I couldn't convince myself to do it. Even last week, I know I thought the Eagles were going to crush them, and the Redskins ended up covering, but that was a bogus cover. And I just think the Cowboys are in better working order after that game against the Giants than the Eagles were. The Eagles sat out their starters for the whole preseason, so that first half was really like their preseason. Also, that's the major argument against sitting your starters for the whole preseason was some of those week 1 games having horrible quarterback play for the first half. So hopefully we won't see that as much. I'm going with the Cowboys here. I've seen the -4.5, -5. I'm probably not going to bet this game, but I look at the Redskins after halftime last week. They couldn't move the ball. They had 6 yards in the third quarter, I think. They were outscored 25-7, and that touchdown was in garbage time. So I think the Cowboys will be better than the Eagles. So I think they win by about a touchdown. But again, I'm not betting this game just because Case Keenum could do something crazy, or Adrian Peterson could, with him likely back in the lineup because Darius Geis is hurt, he could go crazy and just have like 200 yards to show Jay Gruden, you should not have sat me.
Yeah, I've learned not to doubt Adrian Peterson when he's pissed off. And by the way, the poor Redskins have to use a future first ballot Hall of Famer when he can still play well. I don't understand for the life of me why they scratched him. Like, it's just –
there was no logic to it. It was all like, oh, we need special teams. It's like, okay, but do you really need Tanner Vallejo in the game?
Right.
Can you put Peterson in? All sorts of crazy stuff.
No, I don't get it. I like Peterson here. We talked about how we thought the Giants could run on the Cowboys last week. I feel like the Redskins could do the same thing. I think the Redskins are just going to pound the ball with Adrian Peterson. I think Peterson is going to have a big game. And this Dallas team is I feel like is in a very similar spot to what Baltimore is this week. They just had a huge win. It was a national TV spotlight game. It was it was Fox's game of the week. It was a huge victory. They won by 18 points over a divisional rival, and now they have to be thinking they're great. Everyone's praising Kellen Moore. Everyone's saying Dak Prescott should get a new contract. He threw for 400 yards against a horrible team. I think Dallas is a little overrated now, considering this. This line's moving up to 5. I think it could hit 6 at some point. And I think the Cowboys might be a little overconfident in this game, and I don't know if we're going to get their full effort. Usually, veteran teams when they're favored by a lot on the road, and they don't have like a legitimate chance to try hard. Like I feel like the Cowboys think they could just show up and beat the Redskins. I don't think that's going to happen. The Redskins have a good defense. Like we saw the Eagles struggle in the first half, and yet they hit some big plays. But overall, I think the Redskins did a good job on the Eagles. So I think they can limit Dallas a little bit. I think this is going to be a close game. These Cowboys-Redskins games are typically close. And the underdog has covered 14 of the past 21 matchups. So I think that could stay to form. I actually like the Redskins quite a bit here. I like them for 3 units at +5. If it hits +6, I like them even more.
Yeah, I would probably consider betting this game if it was +6. I'd probably go with the Redskins in that circumstance. But I've been covering the Redskins for a few years on one of the sites I work for, and I've seen Jay Gruden just get these games and just, oh man, they'll have a chance to win and they blow it every time. That's why my bet, if you're planning on betting on this game, I would recommend betting that money on Jay Gruden being the first head coach fired this year. And that's nothing against Jay. He seems like a great guy. He has a pretty good offensive mind, but it's been 6 years in Washington with little results. So we'll see what happens, though. If they play well against the Cowboys, that's definitely going to win him some brownie points.
It could, but I like your wager, though. I mean, it both could hit, right? I mean, the Cowboys could win by 3, and then Gruden's fired in like 4 weeks when they're 0-5 or 0-6.
Yeah, no, that's definitely within the realm of possibility. I've already locked in that bet, by the way. I did.
Nice.
I did. I think before the season even started. So
nice. I like that. That's a good one. Next game, Jaguars at Texans. This is gonna be Gardner Minshew's first career start. Texans open up -8 up to -8.5. The action in this game's even. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Texans. I'm not going to trust Gardner Minshew. He did well against the Chiefs, but he did not throw the ball down the field much. And, the Chiefs aren't very good on defense. Deshaun Watson just looked really good against the Saints. They almost won that game had it not been for a miraculous drive by Drew Brees. I just cannot bring myself to bet on the Jaguars. I'm super bummed for them that Nick Foles is out because I really thought they might have had a chance to make the playoffs with him in tow. But Jaguars lost their cool against the Chiefs, so on defense especially. So I'm going with the Texans. Doug Marrone is the other. If you're considering betting on head coaches to be fired, he would be my probably second choice, the guy who would be next out the door. So I'll give the Texans this one, even though I'm not super into Bill O'Brien's strategy either.
Well, yeah, well deserved on Doug Marrone if he's fired. You mentioned Jay Gruden is a nice guy, and I don't know him, so I'll take your word for it on that. But Doug Marrone, he kind of sabotaged the old coaching regime just to get the job, and we talked about it before, like I feel like a year or two ago, and it's just not a good guy. So I wouldn't be too upset about that. I'm with you on Minshew. You just checked it down basically a lot. He threw 2 deep passes against the Chiefs. One was on play action when Tyrann Mathieu bit, and then DJ Chark he was not open, but he was he had good position to catch the ball. The other pass was to Chark as well, and Chark was wide open along the sideline. So not really a good test for Minshew, considering, like you said, the Chiefs aren't a good defense. And Chiefs are playing prevent in the second half anyway. So, like, Minshew had a bunch of chances to just check the ball down. It was an easy game for him. I watched every single snap of Minshew's in the preseason, not because I'm a masochist, but because stuff like this could happen. And I want to see how good he is. And, he had some good moments, but he just wasn't very good. And my overall assessment of him was he could be a backup. He could be a number 2 someday. But not a number 2 right away. And now he's a number 1. So I think the Jaguars are in trouble here, especially against Romeo Crennel. Like, I mean, there's a big difference between playing the Chiefs defense and Romeo Crennel's Texans defense. I feel like Minshew could throw 3 or 4 interceptions here. He had some interception difficulties in the preseason, so I think that could surface again. In the preseason, he held the ball too long at times. And if he does that against the Texans, they're just going to kill him. So I like the Texans here. Probably for 3 or 4 units. I have them for 4 units on the site. So I think they're a good bet. It's unusual that you get a bad quarterback without the public going the other way. Like I said, the action's even. So I like the Texans.
Yeah, I'll probably follow suit on that for you. That 3 to 4 unit bet. It seems like it should be easy money. Even with Deshaun Watson getting crushed by opposing defenders on every play, I think that they'll be just fine against the Jaguars.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I love how the ESPN talked about how they fixed the offensive line, and then he gets sacked 6 times.
Yeah, and also the hilarious thing about ESPN in that broadcast was when they tested the 1st and 10 marker in the first half, that being yellow, and everyone thought there was a flag on every play, so they changed it again at halftime, and it was like, why'd you ever think that was going to work? But some funny moments on Monday Night Football, and what was a great game, though.
That's true. Yeah, ESPN, they just can't seem to get the first down or down graphics correct. Like on college football, it's confusing because I sometimes get the quarter and the downs mixed up. And they just can't seem to figure it out. And I wish they had a better halftime show too, because they had that GE guy, General Electric, maybe. I don't know what it's short for, but he was horrible. I was that music? I have no idea.
Yeah, that always that thing weirds me out with the whole like, oh, we've got live music, but it's not live. It's like it's taped live music. What is it? It's classics. They're trying to be innovative, but maybe we'll stick to the football analysis at the half.
Yeah, it's what football fans are looking for, right? Like, is live music, because they all love live music. Those football fans.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. All right, next game, Seahawks at Steelers. Line open up, Steelers -3.5. It's up to 4. The Seahawks are a public dog here with 2/3 of the action on Seattle. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Steelers. I think they have more to prove than the Seahawks. I know the Seahawks did not play well against the Bengals and came very close to losing that game. which was shocking given how bad we all think the Bengals are. But the Steelers were humiliated in prime time. Mike Tomlin needs this team to bounce back. He needs to prove that they're okay without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. So they have motivation from that standpoint. It's an early East Coast game for the Seahawks, so that's going to hurt them a little bit. The Steelers stopped the run well against the Patriots. It was one of the few things they did was contain Sony Michel. So they should have a chance to at least contain Chris Carson. And this was a little stat I dug up today. Ben Roethlisberger, when coming off a 12-plus point loss, has a career record of 12-4 in 16 games, and 3 of those games have been after games against the Patriots, and I'm fairly certain he was 3-0 in those. So, he likes to bounce back. I think that they ultimately win at home. They get back on the right track. Seattle, frankly, deserves a loss for how they played against the Bengals, so I think the Steelers will deal that to them.
Yeah, I think so too. I love the Steelers here. They're one of my top 3 plays of the week. Something I love to do in week 2 is to take 0-1 teams that need a win, that are good teams. And I think the Steelers qualify as a good team. They still have Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner. I love their offensive line. I love their defensive line. Devin Bush should be good. They have questions in the secondary, obviously, but I think overall they're a good team, and I think they rebound, like you said, and I think you said it perfectly with them bouncing back from being humiliated on national TV. I mean, I think that's exactly why the public is 2/3 on Seattle, and I don't think they're factoring enough. They're not giving the Patriots enough credit. I just think the Patriots are that good, and they also match up very well against the Steelers. So it was just a horrible showing for the Steelers, and I like the stat. I think they bounced back, and the Seahawks are not a good football team. They almost lost to the Bengals. They couldn't stop John Ross from catching. John Ross had 155 yards.
Yeah, something like that, and I think he had a couple touchdowns, right?
It was horrible. I was watching this game. I was like, is this real life? Like, what is happening? Like, why is John Ross unstoppable here? It's not John Ross. I think it's Seattle. Their defense is so bad, except for their linebackers. Like, they have no pass rush. They can't stop the run, and their secondary stinks. Not a good combination. So I think the Steelers bounce back. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is like a 20-point win for the Steelers.
Yeah, they definitely could use a win like that. Just kind of power them up again and be like, hey, we're not as bad as you think we were. Because, I mean, they have the weapons. Because even without, we talked about this last week, even without Bell and Antonio Brown, James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster are no slouches. The Patriots know how to take away the top weapons of good teams. And they've constantly done that against Tomlin. So we'll see if they have more success against the Seahawks. I can virtually guarantee they will.
Yeah, I think so. All right, next game, 49ers at Bengals. 49ers actually open up as a point favorite. Now the Bengals are favored by 1.5. Actions slightly toward the Bengals here. Nothing significant. Who do you like here?
I like the 49ers. I don't know. I doubt I'm going to bet this game. I don't particularly like either of these teams. But I think the public might be overreacting a little bit to the fact that the Bengals kept it close with the Seahawks. That was their first game under a new head coach, and I know this will be their first home game under a new head coach. But I don't see them competing as well with the 49ers as they did with the Seahawks. Joe Mixon's a little bit banged up. The 49ers were able to force a ton of turnovers off Jameis Winston. If they can get Andy Dalton into one of his stretches where he just can't complete a pass or he turns the ball over, that's all they're going to need to get a win here. I like the Niners +1. Again, I'm not going to bet on this because it really could go either way, and neither of these teams is particularly good. But it would be nice to see the 49ers start 2-0 for the sake of Jimmy Garoppolo, who got a lot of flack in the preseason for rightfully so for his performance. But he's still an unproven quarterback, and people kind of forget that. So it'd be nice to see him start 2-0.
Yeah, I think they will too. I'm just as non-enthusiastic about this as you are. I don't like this game at all. I wish we were getting +3. That would get me to bet on the 49ers. They're actually favored by 2.5 on the advanced line. So 4 points of value, even though there's no key number, is slightly enticing, but it's not enough for me to bet on the Niners or anything. I think the matchup is pretty key here. The Bengals, their offensive line actually held up pretty well against Seattle, but Seattle doesn't have any pass rush outside of Jadeveon Clowney, and Clowney looked good at the beginning of the game, and then as the game wore on, he just didn't do anything, and it looked like he was not in shape, which is not a surprise because he held out. And so with Clowney kind of floundering in the second half, Seattle couldn't get to Dalton at all. So I think the Niners will have better success there. They have Nick Bosa, who looked great in the opener. They have Dee Ford on the other side, and then they have DeForest Buckner. Those three guys should be able to rattle Dalton, who's still, I don't like Cincinnati's offensive line at all, even if Cordy Glenn plays. So I think the 49ers have the advantage here. I don't like that it's, again, it's an early game on the East Coast for the 49ers. But the same thing could apply to Cincinnati because they played on the West Coast, and now they have to fly back and play an early game. So not an advantage there. So overall, I just don't like this game, but I'm with you slightly on the Niners, but I'm not going to bet it.
Yeah, and can we trade Cordy Glenn to a team that has an offensive line? Are we allowed to do that at this point? Because Cincinnati's unit is so bad. Glenn's going to help them a little bit, but I'd like to see him, play guard or left tackle for a team that really could use him in a playoff run. So just a note, Cordy Glenn, I feel for you.
Yeah, Chargers would be a nice fit. That would be a huge upgrade over Trent Scott. And even if Russell Okung returns, they can move Glenn to right tackle, and he'd be an upgrade there too. So
or even kick him inside the left guard. If Washington was contending, I'd say trade him there and put him at left guard. But
yep.
But I bet if there's a big trade in the NFL or a big trade, semi-big trade, Cordy Glenn could get moved. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I could too. So the last of the early games, the Vikings are at the Packers. It's line open up Packers -3. It's still it's -3. There were some -2.5s at some point, but it's now settled in at 3. This is my makeup pick of the month. So my rule is if my pick of the month pushes, I get another try. So this is my pick of the month. So I'm curious to see if we're both on the same side here.
I mean, it has to be the Packers, right?
Yeah, it's the Packers. Yeah,
Okay,
and I should mention almost 2/3 of the action on the Vikings.
Yeah. No, I if you were on the Vikings here, I'd be like, you might want to pick a different pick of the month. I mean, the Packers -3 as our home favorite. It's a home opener. And they just played so well on defense against the Bears. I mean, they held them to 3 points. Their offense was not working for almost the entirety of that game. Again, I think that had to do with Aaron Rodgers sitting for almost all the preseason. I think actually, if not all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Rodgers is 64-17-1 all time at home. Cousins is 4-25 against teams with a winning record. I know I brought that up last week for the Falcons, so I will put that at a grain of salt. The Falcons did not look like a winning team last week. The Packers certainly do. And also, Cousins threw 10 passes last week, and they won by 16, which just blows my mind that was even possible. That's like a very weird statistical anomaly. You won't find a lot of games like that in NFL history. But the other big thing that I think could play into this game is the Packers played the Vikings at home last year in week 2. And they should have won that game, but there was the bogus pass, roughing the passer call on Clay Matthews because of that whole you can't drive the quarterback into the ground rule. But he didn't really, but they called it anyway. So it ended in a tie. So I think the Packers might have that in the back of their minds, be like, hey, we don't want to end up in that same situation. Let's just run over them, run roughshod, get our offense going, really contain them on defense. Because, I mean, if they can contain the run and make Kirk Cousins win passing the ball, I don't know if that's going to happen. So I'd be all over the Packers here. I'd probably put 3 or 4 units on them at the least.
Yeah, you mentioned that game. So it's interesting that they should have won that game. They were up most of the game. And yeah, if it wasn't for that roughing the passer call and also Mason Crosby missed some field goals, they would have won that game. And yet Aaron Rodgers wasn't 100%. He tore up his knee the week before. So you had Rodgers, and if I remember correctly, we didn't even know if he was going to play until Sunday morning. And that's how banged up he was. And now we have Rodgers at 100%. With a better defense against the Vikings. This is the same Minnesota team, basically. I don't see why they wouldn't win this game by, a touchdown at least. This could be a double-digit win I feel like, for the Packers. So, and you mentioned that game. I think there's also a chance for revenge for the national TV game they lost later in the year. So that's another factor. But overall, I just think the Packers are the better team. I love their defense, as you talked about. That's why it's a major reason why we both like them against the Bears in the opener. And I made this line Packers -5.5. So we're getting 3 and 4, which is 2 key numbers in the NFL. And I mentioned the public. The public is all over the Vikings. The Vikings are a public dog, which, public dogs in the NFL typically lose. It's just not a good situation for them. The Packers have had extra time to prepare for this game, so I think that's a big deal. The DVOA even likes the Packers here. They say the Packers should be -4. So that's significant. And then, like you said, Kirk Cousins, he has an awful track record against good teams and he chokes in big games. And I think this is a big game for him. I know he came up big in the at the end of the week 2 game against the Vikings. My dog's going crazy, by the way.
I can hear it. It's all good.
Yeah, I forgot to close my door. Thanks to my wife for closing the door. Anyway, there's so many reasons to love the Packers here. I absolutely love them. When I saw that this line was only -2.5 or -3, I thought, man, the public's going to slam the Packers here. Like, why is this line so short? And then the public's on the Vikings. It's like, okay, thanks. I'll take the Packers all day.
Yeah, no, it just makes too much sense. It feels like people are still sleeping on the Packers, or at the very least, they're overreacting to the Vikings win over the Falcons, which frankly was more about the Falcons imploding, in my opinion, than the Vikings doing anything besides run the ball well.
Yeah, I agree. We'll talk about the Falcons in a bit. They're the Sunday night game. Move on. Before we move on to the late games, I should note that we're sponsored by DraftKings. So you can go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, for a bonus with your first deposit. So why not do it? It's free money, so you can enter some contests for free. So check that out. The first of the late afternoon games, the Chiefs are at the Raiders. The line opened up Chiefs -8. It's actually just crept down to -7.5. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Raiders because I'm insane. That's really the only thing I can say about it at this point. I like the Jaguars last week against the Chiefs. Obviously, Nick Foles' injury kind of threw a wrench into that plan. But it's the black hole. It's a tough place for opposing quarterbacks to play. The Chiefs played very well against the Jaguars. The Raiders played very well against the Broncos, but I feel like the Chiefs may overlook the Raiders, even if it's a road divisional game. And I don't know. The Raiders the last 2 years have been within 7 points of the Chiefs in the 2 black hole meetings. They won 1, lost 1 by 7. And I just think they're going to keep it closer than people think. I don't have a lot of faith in this. I don't know if I would actually bet this. But also, it's just weird. I just have a weird gut feeling about this game going bad for the Chiefs, and I can't explain why. But I just saw this game on the schedule, and I was like, man, I really just don't like the Chiefs over the Raiders right now. And that's probably insane. I also thought last year the Cardinals were going to beat the Chiefs one week. And when I told my boss that at the time, I walked into work and said, I think the Chiefs lose to the Cardinals this week. He looked me in the eyes and goes, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous pick right now. So we'll see what happens, but I'm taking Raiders +8, but I'm probably not going to bet on it.
Well, the Cardinals covered against the Chiefs, and that's what matters. That's all that counts. I had trouble with this game, so it sounds like you're more convinced about a side than I am. I'm on the Chiefs, but I'm not I don't love it. The computer model I use say the Chiefs should be favored by 11. And plus I worry about the Raiders having an emotional letdown after that Monday night game. It's a late game. They were going crazy. It's just overcome with emotion. And, they won that game. I feel like they celebrated their Super Bowl a little bit. Like they beat the Broncos, their hated rival, the Broncos. They proved that they can win without Antonio Brown. Now it's a short work week. Andy Reid has had more time to prepare for this game than John Gruden has. I think that's a factor. So I like the Chiefs, but on the other hand, I could make a case for the Raiders. I think you made some good points. You look at the DVOA numbers. DVOA says this line should only be Chiefs -1, which was just eye-opening for me. My line that I made for this game was Chiefs -5, so this line is higher than that. So I could see why you would take the Raiders. I just fear the emotional letdown, and I think that is that's going to take precedent for me over everything else. But this is one of my least confident picks of the week. Like I would not bet this, even if like as Kenny would say, if a guy points a gun at you and says bet $1 in this game, I don't think I'd bet $1 in this game. I just think I'd take the bullet. So this is yeah, I don't like this game at all. To be honest, but I do like the other late afternoon games more. Not so much this next one, but the other one. The Saints are at the Rams. Rams open up -3. It's actually -2.5, -120 or -115. But it's hovering around that number. So who do you like in this big game?
I like the Saints. I know that they just played a tight one against the Texans, but I still don't trust Jared Goff. He looked shaky in the opener against Carolina. The Saints, I think, have a pretty solid defense, even though they let up some big pass plays against the Texans. And, with the concerns about Todd Gurley, whether or not he's fully healthy, I'm not fully on board for the Rams just yet. I think it'll be close. If we're getting +3, I'll bet probably a unit on the Saints. If it's anything less than that, I'd probably be concerned, maybe not bet it in the end. But I mean, Drew Brees showed what he could do at the end of that Monday night game, leading them to a win with 37 seconds left. So I think they're going to find themselves in a very similar situation, close against the Rams, whether they're leading or if they're trailing. I just trust Drew Brees to get the job done. So I think the Saints can win this game. So I would at least consider a line where they're the underdog.
Yeah, I can make some cases for the Rams here. Like obviously this is a revenge game for the Saints, but I don't think the Rams are going to roll over. I feel like everyone just thinks the Saints are going to win because it's revenge. But the Rams, I mean, this is a big game for them. This could mean home field advantage for the NFC Championship, and they're not going to get that sort of call again. So they might need to be at home. And the Saints are a public dog. I forgot to mention they're almost 70% of the money is on the Saints. So that's a little bit worrying. As I said, like betting on public dogs is just asking for trouble in the NFL. Sean McVay has had more time to prepare for this game than Sean Payton has. And I know it's only one day, but I think everything matters a little bit. Especially in close games like this. The Saints typically start slowly with Sean McVay. They're 1-12 against the spread in weeks 1 and 2 since 2013, which is just crazy. They won Monday night, but they lost against the spread again. So they have these slow starts. But then again, like I just trust Drew Brees so much more than Jared Goff, and that's what it comes down to. Jared Goff was not good against the Panthers. He seemed to be rattled by pressure with 2 new starters on the offensive line. I don't think he's going to be the same quarterback without that elite protection. Goff he's had trouble when pressured a lot in the past, and I think the Saints could get to him. The Saints sacked Deshaun Watson 6 times, as I mentioned earlier, so they should be able to get to Goff considerably. And then, like you said, if it's a close game and Brees has his chance to win it, I think he can do it. So I'm on the Saints here. I like this game a little bit more than the previous one, but I don't love it. I'm not going to bet this one.
Yeah, I completely overlooked the revenge game factor because, oh man, I when that call was made, I was mad, and I'm not even a Saints fan, so that makes me a little more confident in the Saints pick. But like you said, I think this is just too much of a toss up. I'm again may bet 1 unit on it, but I'm more likely to not touch it.
Yeah. So as I said before, I like the other late afternoon game much more. This is one of my top 3 plays of the week. So I'm curious to see if you're on the same side. Bears at Broncos. This line open up Bears -2. It's up to 3 or 2.5 depending on where you look. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Broncos. The Broncos just had a terrible opener against the Raiders in the black hole. And Vic Fangio had waited 40 years or 40 some odd years for that opportunity. And it was it's kind of probably a deflating loss for him. Joe Flacco didn't look very good. But this is a big game for him because he's facing his old team and he kind of needs to prove like, hey, I can be the head coach here and I can lead this team to victory. That Raiders thing was not a fluke, but we went up against the team wanting to prove themselves in an emotional primetime game. I can protect this house at home with the Broncos. And, the Bears are also coming off a lethargic opener against the Packers. Their offense looked terrible. That was at home. I don't think they're going to look significantly better. I know the Broncos defense didn't play particularly well on Monday night, but they had their moments. I think that Mitch Trubisky could struggle a bit, and I think that Vic Fangio will have the Broncos ready to play. And the other thing is just teams playing in Denver. The altitude is massive difference for them. So I think if you're getting 3 points on this, I'm all over the Broncos for a couple of units. But I'm definitely on board with the Broncos. I think they win this game outright. So as long as they're the dog, I'm going to probably bet a unit or two on them.
Yeah, I love Denver here. This seems such a great spot for them. So when I handicap games, I look at 4 items. I look at the matchup. I look at the spread, the motivation, and how Vegas is going. And I feel like Denver has an edge in every single category. So with the matchup, I think Vic Fangio, his knowledge about the Bears, I think it's a huge deal. You look at when coaches go against a former team, doesn't always work, but they usually cover. So I think that's, he knows the Bears personnel. He knows what flaws Mitchell Trubisky has. So I think that's important for this matchup. Look, the spread, I made the spread Denver -1. I was pretty surprised when the Bears are favored, even like close to 3. Like that seems like shocking to me. So we're getting 4 points of value if this line is +3, and you can get a +3. It's like currently +3 -115 at Bet US. So I think that's worth looking at. I would even consider maybe locking that in because this line might move down if the sharps are on Denver. Look at the motivation. I like what you said. Like the Broncos, they lost their opener. They're embarrassed on national TV. This is their home opener. This is their chance to prove that they can win. I think this is a big statement game for them. So I think that favors them. And then the Vegas, and I kind of excluded this in the opener because I wanted to emphasize it here. Almost 90% of the money is on Chicago, which is insane. Like 90% of the money is on Mitchell Trubisky as a road favorite. Like what alternative universe are we living in that Mitchell Trubisky is getting this much money as a road favorite?
It's amazing how short-term people's memories with these things can be, because it's just the Broncos looked so bad in primetime more recently than Trubisky did. So that 4-day difference makes a huge impact.
Yeah, when Trubisky had that horrible game, I thought for sure people were going to bet the Broncos in this game. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb against Mitchell Trubisky, like recipe for disaster, but apparently not. People love the Bears in this game. So you have all those matchup edges. So yeah, I like Denver a lot here, especially if it's, it has to be +3. And the fact that it's +3 -115, I think is good enough to lock in, because like I said, the sharps could easily take this down with a huge, all it takes is a 5-figure bet on Denver to move this off +3 permanently. So I think we're going to lock this in tonight.
Yeah, I'll probably follow suit. I think it's just such a good line, and I like the narrative too. Like Vic Fangio, that I would like to see him get a win. I would like to see the Bears face some more adversity.
Yeah, for sure. Sunday night game, Eagles at Falcons. Eagles open up -1. It's now -1.5. So we touched on the Falcons a little bit earlier. So yeah, they played horribly. It'll be interesting to see if they can rebound on national TV. But the public doesn't think they will. Almost 80% of the money is on the Eagles. So who do you like in this game?
I want to just preface this by saying I hate this game because it's just two teams that I was very confident in week 1 who both failed me. So I'm kind of a little angry at them. But I mean, the Falcons lost Chris Lindstrom, which really hurts their offensive line. The right side of the line now looks really bad. And, the Eagles did lose Malik Jackson, which is a huge loss for them. But they still have a stacked defensive line. Despite that and all logic, I'm probably going to go with the Falcons in this one to cover. I don't know if I'll bet. I'll probably put a unit on it. This is another one I'm not super confident in. But you just have to look at Matt Ryan's home record. He's 57-29 at home in his career. And in home openers in his career, he is 10-1. And that includes 2 games against Philadelphia. I know they're probably not the same team that they were when those were, but they're 2-0 against Philadelphia in home openers. So I like Matt Ryan to have a bounce back win. I think this is kind of similar to the Seahawks-Steelers game. I think the Falcons need the win a little more than the Eagles do, because the Eagles pulled out what was a bad win, but they still got the win. So I'm leaning on the home team. Again, I don't trust it very much just because of the protection issues on offense, but I'd go with the Falcons here.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna be on different sides here, but although I'm not like super confident in my pick, I could see the case for the Falcons because this is a big revenge game for them, not only from last year's opener, but for the playoff loss in 2017. And you have all this money coming in on the Eagles, so I could definitely see the case of the Falcons. They just can't block, and this is something we talked about last week when I asked you about their offensive line. I thought that was such a big issue for me because in the preseason they couldn't even block Washington's backups in a preseason game, and now all of a sudden they couldn't block the Vikings, and now Chris Lindstrom's gone, and I don't know what's going on there. As you said, the right side of their offensive line is horrible, but then the left side of the line is terrible too. Like I don't know what happened to Jake Matthews. He and Alex Mack look like they've aged like 50 years all of a sudden. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. They can't block. Do you have any theories on like why they're so bad?
Well, my initial theory is that because I picked them to win the Super Bowl, they're now bad. No, the regression of Jake Matthews was the most surprising thing to me because, like, at least with Alex Mack, you can make the case like he's been in the league a long time and he's on the older side. Matthews' regression is just inexplicable to me, and I don't know if they made any changes to their offensive line coaching staff this offseason. That would be the only theory I could come up with. But I really don't know because they were not this bad last year. Like they were fine, but it seemed they had upgrades, and now they just don't look nearly as good. And it's really worrying for me because I have a bet on the Falcons to win the Super Bowl, which is part of the reason that I'm taking them to win because I need them to win. But we'll see what happens. But I've just looked. They did not have a change at the offensive line coach position, so I have no idea.
I don't get it. I was right there with you. I like the Falcons a lot this year. I had them in the playoffs, and I think I had them winning 10 games. I don't get it. I don't get why they're so bad. And you think they'd be better because they got rid of Sarkisian, but they've got worse offensively. So I really don't understand what happened. So I'm on the Eagles. I made this line Eagles minus 3.5. So I'm going through 3. The computer model I use made this line Eagles minus 5. So it's even better. So I think ultimately I think the Falcons will have the lead at some point in this game, but I think Carson Wentz will, like Drew Brees we discussed a couple games earlier. I think Carson Wentz will find a way to win this game. But that's my take. I think this could be a blowout though. If the Falcons are as bad as they look against the Vikings and the preseason, we haven't seen any signs that they're good. If they're just as bad, this is going to be a blowout. So,
yeah, my credibility will be shot if that happens. So we got to hope it's at least close.
Yeah, well, I have it a 4-point game, so maybe it'll be like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like it's inexplicable. Like I said, I had them at 10-6, and I thought they were a good Super Bowl pick, but I don't, like I said, I don't know. It's one of the most puzzling things. There must be something going on there behind the scenes that we just don't know about. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, same.
All right, the Monday night game. This was billed as a huge game entering the year. The Browns are at the Jets. You had 2 second-year quarterbacks, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Browns, of course, everyone thought they're going to win the Super Bowl, so of course they were going to, right? The Browns are open up minus 2.5. It's still minus 2.5. You can find a +3 somewhere for the Jets, but you have to pay a lot of juice. Almost 80% of the money is on the Browns, so people aren't willing to give up on the Browns. So what do you think about this game?
The public's Browns must be my Falcons. I guess that's what's going on here. But this was what I wrote when I first saw this line in the notes that I took. I just wrote, I can't fathom why the Browns are 2.5-point road favorites. I know the Jets weren't particularly good, but the Browns were really bad, like a lot worse than people were anticipating. And I think that Jets defense is going to be able to get pressure on them like Tennessee was able to. That Cleveland offensive line, losing Kevin Zeitler, has proven to be huge for them. They only have 2 really quality interior linemen and nothing on the edges anymore. So I think the Jets defense really is the difference maker here. Um, and like you mentioned, these two teams played last year, and it was fairly close. And Mayfield ended up coming into the game for his first NFL action and leading the Browns to victory. I think Darnold will have some motivation to, one, prove his performance in week one was just a bad outing against a good defense, and two, he'll want to get revenge on Mayfield for kind of showing him up in that game last year. I just don't have any faith in Freddie Kitchens at all. So I'm going against the Browns here. I'm taking the Jets, and I think that Dream Team Eagles Browns team is really, really going to start panning out after week 2.
Yeah, this is bad. I don't get this line either. I made this line Jets -3.5 because I have the Jets slightly better than the Browns, and yet the Browns are almost favored by 3. This line's just not correct. Like every metric I use say that the Jets should be favored. DVOA says the Jets should be favored by 3. So the Jets have the spread advantage here. They should be favored, and if you get +3 and the line should be -3, like that's enormous because you're going through 3 twice, which is as I said before, 3 is the most likely result. If you're going through it twice, that's huge. I think as I mentioned, all the money's on the Browns still. That's the thing. But I think that the Jets could have the bigger motivational edge here too. This is their first Monday night home game in about 3 years. So certainly the first under this coaching staff and quarterback. I think usually when you see a team not host a Monday night game for a while and then they host a Monday night game and there is reason to be optimistic about them, I think that they play with a lot of emotion here. And I think the Jets are going to have more energy than the Browns. I still think the Browns are still kind of weighed by their Super Bowl expectations heading into the year. And yeah, they can't block. So they're going to have problems with the Jets defensive line. The Jets have a great defensive front with the 2 Williamses, and also their edge rusher, his name's slips in my mind, but he had a great game last week as well. And the Browns, their left tackle situation is just horrible. Like Greg Robinson was their left tackle heading into the year. So yeah, Jordan Jenkins. I think he's going to have another big game, especially against these horrible tackles. So yeah, I like the Jets a lot. I think they're definitely going to make my super contest card.
Yeah, no, I would definitely back that pick. I just, like you said, this line, it just does not feel right at all. And I think the Jets need a bounce back. And for the Browns, this will kind of be like that sobering moment where people realize, like, hey, this team's not quite ready for this stage yet. Like maybe 2020 will be when they step up. But I'll go with Darnold in this one. It's going to be a fun one to watch, though. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, they need offensive line help for sure. Yeah, Greg Robinson at left tackle. Like who's betting a team with Greg Robinson as their left tackle? Like it's just I don't know. There's just like red flags all over the place with this team, especially how they couldn't pass protect in the preseason against the Buccaneers. So that is just bad. I would say the one caveat here is that CJ Mosley he got injured last week. And that kind of sparked Buffalo's comeback. The Jets were up 16-0. Mosley left the game with a groin injury, and then the Bills came back and scored 17 points. If CJ Mosley's out, that's going to affect my unit count. It won't be as high. Right now I have 4 units, so I might cut that in half. But it sounds like Mosley's going to play. Like it's not known for sure, but they seem optimistic about him. So I would definitely check on his status before I play this. Before I bet the Jets.
Yeah, he's definitely a key player, especially with Avery Williamson out. Like those two were supposed to be their top guys. So if they're without him, I would be less confident, but I'd still bet the Jets.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's it for this week. Do you have anything else to add? I feel like this slate's a lot more promising than week 1, as I said before.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a much better week. There are a lot more games that we kind of have a better gut feeling on. So I'll be interested to see how they all play out. But I'm just excited that football's back more than anything else. So I'll take any game at this point.
That's true. Yeah, definitely an exciting time. As I said to start the show, I had trouble filling out 5 teams for the Super Contest. This week, I have like 8 games I'm considering. So it's going to be the opposite problem, which is, I guess, not really a problem, but I have to kind of figure it out. So you're at you're at Jacob Chemiker, right, on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything to plug?
Yeah, I've got some Patriots coverage at NBC Sports Boston coming up. I work on Sundays during game days, so I'll be writing about the team. We wrote about Antonio Brown this past week, so if you want to check that out, feel free. Redskins coverage you can find at rigosrag.com. We have me and my coworker Ian pump out tons of content on a weekly basis. So we'll have stuff there. And anytime you want any football questions, at Jake Kammerker on Twitter, and I'll tweet out my favorite picks of the week as well. So you'll be seeing those if you follow me.
Sounds good. I'm at waltzerfootball.com. We're going to have pick updates throughout the week. Fantasy rankings are already up for week 2, so you can check those out. And like with my picks, they're going to be updated throughout the week. So yeah, I will talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. See you then, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye.